Welcome to the May 2026 Public Forum. I advise that this forum is being streamed live to the internet. All those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements, and upon joining these online forums, you accept the condition that your image may be recorded and streamed to the internet, as well as being retained in the archives of the recorded council meetings and standing committee meetings. I'll now run you through the rules of Public Forum. Each speaker will have up to 5 minutes to speak. When you come forward to speak, please state your name and the item you will be speaking to. When you have 30 seconds remaining, you will hear a bell rung at 5 minutes. The bell will be rung multiple times, the microphones will be turned off, and you will conclude your speaking slot. Registered speakers only will be asked to speak. Gallery members should refrain from any disruptive behaviour, including clapping or jeering. The acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land, and I'd also like to pay respect to elders past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal peoples from other nations who are present today. Do any councillors have any conflicts to declare? No. First up, we have on agenda 8.5, Mary Noglick. Righto. We'll go to the next one. Amanda Pepinell on agenda item 10.3.
Hello everyone, my name is Amanda Pepinell. Welcome Andrew, and thank you to Luke Ryan, our GM, who's left the room. Anyway, thank you to Luke Ryan as well, very communicative, thank you. So thank you, my name is Amanda Pepinell. I'm speaking to 10.3, the water bill, community concerns. And I'm here tonight because the community has reached breaking point, not just with the water billing system, but with how council has handled the issue from the very beginning. This is no longer a technical problem, it's a cultural problem inside this organisation. For a long time, residents have raised concerns backed by solid evidence, photographic logs, historic comparisons, neighbour-to-neighbour checks, documented anomalies, and consumption spikes that simply cannot be explained by physics. And what have we been met with? Dismissal, deflection, and a level of arrogance that has no place in public authority. Residents have been told, your usage is high, you must have a leak, your meter is fine. These are not investigations, they are scripted responses just designed to shut people down. When council defaults to blaming residents instead of examining the data, that is not customer service. That is a failure of responsibility. We have also heard explanations that simply do not stack up. Explanations that contradict hydraulics, ignore meter tolerances, almost take our averaging works. If council cannot explain the system accurately, they should not be administrating it. And if they won't explain it accurately, then there is a much deeper issue here. Council has communicated, but only after pressure is applied. That is not proactive governance. That is not early intervention. This is reacting only once the issue becomes too large to ignore. A well-run organisation identifies patterns early, communicates openly, and does not wait for residents to join the dots. Contrast this with Forbes Shire Council. When they experienced issues, they did not deny, minimise or blame residents. They publicly acknowledged the faults, communicated consistently, and explained clearly what went wrong. They acted before the issue spiralled, not after the community forced their hand. Meanwhile, Dubbo residents still cannot access basic technical information themselves, meter specifications, collaboration standards, error codes, data transmission protocols, or firmware history. Council behaves as though this information is secret or too complex for the public to understand. It is not. And then there's the meter fee test, not used as a diagnostic tool, but as a deterrent. Residents are warned if there is no fault found, they will be charged. Could not tell me how much I would be charged when I went to the council chambers to ask. This is not neutral. It discourages scrutiny and shifts the burden of proof onto the customer, even when anomalies are obvious. So tonight, I'm calling for 5 immediate actions. 1, a full independent audit of the metering system, hardware, software, data transmission and billing logic. 2, a review of staff conduct, including communication practices and accuracy of information provided. Immediate suspension of the meter test fee. 4, mandatory publication of all technical documentation. And 5, a transparent monthly reporting dashboard on complaints and resolutions. At the end of the day, this is about accountability. Council staff are custodians of public trust. When they dismiss evidence, communicate reactively, use deterrent fees, and downplay systematic issues, they undermine not only the water system, they undermine confidence in the entire organisation. Our community deserves better than this. Our community does deserve better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker we have Peter Dwyer on agenda item 8.5. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Peter Dwyer, and I wish to address you on motion 8.5, the renewable energy investment and community benefit. Mr Mayor and councillors, it gives me no joy to stand here again for the third time in 12 months this evening to address you on renewable energy. Councillors, we are tired, we are worn out, and we are distressed. We all have jobs, we run businesses, we have family and outside interests. But for the last 12 months, all of our spare time and more has been spent defending our livelihood and our lifestyle against a renewable energy project on our doorstep. This motion fails to take into account the stress and impact of adjoining landholders, the mental health effects, the property devaluation, cumulative impact, destruction of rural land, reduction in rural production, and the negative effect on tourism, to name a few. Why would any councillor put forward a motion that publicly positions the council as, and I quote from the motion, progressive, investment ready and open for business, while 200 plus families are staring down the barrel of an industrial scale energy project on their doorstep? This motion looks less like leadership and more like preemptive endorsement. It looks like a message to Sydney that Dubbo will not make noise, not push back, and will not stand up for its own residents. The motion ignores the unequal burden placed on 200 households. The region may benefit, the state may benefit, developers will certainly benefit. But the costs, the noise, the visual impact, the safety risks, the construction disruption, the long-term industrialisation of rural land fall squarely on a small group of families. Why does the motion not acknowledge this imbalance? Why does it not call for stronger protections, larger setbacks, or mandatory compensation? Why does it not demand that those who bear the burden share in the benefit? We deserve councillors who advocate for us, not for developers. So I ask again, why would any councillor put forward a motion that signals unconditional enthusiasm for renewable energy projects before the impacts on local residents have even been properly assessed? What message does this send to New South Wales planning? What message does it send to the developers? And what message does it send to us? Rural ratepayers are still a large contributor to the LGA rates, yet are being ignored in this debate. The passing of this motion will only proliferate the suffering and hardship being endorsed by local ratepayers and those who live near proposed renewable energy projects. Please be honest in your deliberations. Here, in the understanding that it is the rural residents of the LGA that suffer the consequences of council support for renewable energy storage investment within the Dubbo LGA. Consideration of Commissioner Tony Maher's comments in his annual report to Parliament last week would be useful in this debate. And I quote, "The challenges of energy transition are complex and deeper than I had ever imagined. Change of this magnitude is never going to be easy, but with the commitment and goodwill, I hope to see the communities get the opportunity to provide genuine input into the process and achieve real lasting benefits." Commissioner Maher is based in Canberra. He has inspected the Hampton Park site and met with the residents on more than one occasion. Yet the mover of this motion refuses to drive to Hampton Park or Boree to inspect this area or meet the affected residents. As a casual observer, I may be forgiven for suggesting that members of this chamber who benefit from involvement in renewable energy by way of advising or public promotion of renewable energy mantra should be excused from debate on these matters under the conflict of interest provisions of council. Councillors, there are a number of other members of this gallery who registered to speak to this motion, and I would appreciate that opportunity if time allows. If this motion is adopted, councillors, tonight, the acronym for DRC will no longer stand for Dubbo Regional Council, but will stand for Dickerson's Renewable Corridor. Thank you.
Next up, we have back to the first speaker, Mary, who's here now, please.
Testing, have I got it? Okay, this is again the notice of motion, renewable investment. Councillor Matthew Dickinson, Mayor and councillors, thank you. My name is Mary Noglick. I'm speaking on behalf of Pete Reardon, who couldn't be here, Chair, Save Geary Stop Boree Solar. I'm here to ask you to vote no to Councillor Dickinson's motion. This isn't a vote about renewable. It's a vote about whether you keep your right to represent us. Point 2 of this motion asks you to reaffirm council's support for all renewable projects. That may sound harmless. It isn't. It's a blanket policy. Once you adopt it, it will be used to overturn your past decisions. For example, objection to Hampton Park, and it will be used to block any future decision to object to a project, no matter how harmful, no matter how opposed. You cannot vote yes to this motion today and then claim you have an open mind on the next DA tomorrow. They're totally contradictory. This motion takes your right to say no and gives it away before you've seen the plans, heard from locals or counted the cost. We're not anti-renewables. Dubbo has 30 plus projects. A significant percentage of our homes have rooftop solar. When council lets projects through without objection, you're showing you care about some greater good. We accept that. But ethics means you also have to stand up for the minority when they're being harmed. And right now, parts of this community are being harmed. Just 2 examples include agricultural harm. Thousands of hectares of solar and wind farms now cover prime agricultural land. Much of it is SSAL, State Strategic Agricultural Land. There are no mandatory protections. We are removing viable farms from the pool of future generations. Also, social harm. The landscape around Geary and our rural townships is changing forever. Our sense of place is being destroyed. We have consultation fatigue, community division, and anxiety after years of construction and ticker box consultation with proponents. Our sense of loss is significant because we are being treated as sacrifices for the greater good. The greater good cannot justify avoidable harm to real people in your electorate. This is not progress, this is abandonment. Councillor Dickinson says this motion won't disregard community concerns, but passing it does exactly that in advance. Keep your legal role, keep your moral duty, keep your right to object when a project is wrong. Vote no to this motion. Thank you. That's from Pete, but I have a little add-on I'd like to put just from myself, and I'm only representing me when I say it. If everyone's okay, I think I've got 2 minutes. Under the current political climate, where more transparency is being called for, the voices of Australian citizens are being shut down at every turn and our democratic rights are being eroded. This motion is a direct insult to councillors across Australia who are desperately trying to hold the line of local representation against state governments that are quite clearly acting as police states and riding roughshod over local communities where they have no right to tread unbidden. This motion shows no respect or concern for the cumulative effects on the local community this council represents. In fact, this motion is rubbing salt into the wounds of those of us who are under enormous stress from this out of control rollout of renewables. Very graciously, all councillors here, bar one, have had the decency and respect to visit the sites of these proposed projects and express their concerns at the inappropriate selection of some sites. Bori in particular, Councillor Dickinson's motion in its entirety needs to be quashed unequivocally to never raise its ugly head again. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Mr. Scott Wilkinson on agenda item 10.1. 10.2.
I'll with it. Mr. Mayor, councillors, General Manager, my name is Scott Wilkinson and I am here today representing the people of Wellington. I'm sitting here today because our purpose-built civic centre is sitting locked up collecting dust and has become a $1,800 a day white elephant. Instead of being the cultural heartbeat of our town, it has become a financial brick wall. The cost to our town is devastating. Local institutions like Watts haven't even been able to afford to perform there since 2019. The Wellington Eisteddfod, which brings in 2,500 people into our town, is struggling under the weight of these fees. I've seen major community fundraisers like the Quota Club Art Show forced to look elsewhere because the venue hire defeats the entire purpose of raising money for charity. But worst of all, I've seen the breaking point where organisers for a local mental health and suicide prevention forum couldn't even get the doors open. When a council's pricing structure locks out the vital community support, the system is fundamentally broken. The base hire cost alone is $1,407, but nobody hires an empty shell. What's going on here? When a local group needs to add on a kitchen just to boil an urn or open up the bar, those extra add-ons bring the invoice up over $1,800, over the $1,800 mark. Residents are expected to pay these rates for a facility that isn't even properly maintained. I've heard from local caterers who have had power trip out on them because the building doesn't even have standard 15 amp power point to run basic equipment, such as a coffee machine. Under the old Wellington Shire Council, the policy was simple: recover the basic expense and subsidise the rest as an investment into the community. Today, the council operates with a business-first determination that has forgotten what the Civic Centre is actually built for. I'm not just here to complain today. I'm here demanding a transparent review. I have with me a collection of evidence, including formal submissions and letters of support signed by Wellington locals, long-term residents, the presidents of our community groups, a regional non-for-profit foundations who actively bypass these venues. I'm submitting these evidence to demand that council immediately review the actual running costs of this building. It's time to scrap the hidden fee facility add-ons and work towards a transparent, all-inclusive flat rate pricing model that makes the venue affordable enough to be used. Now, I know that council budget season is quite lengthy, but Wellington cannot wait for a 2-year budget review. The community groups I represent need relief now. I ask you to read these letters, act on the glaring issues exposed in today's agenda, and give Wellington its hall back. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Karen Mayers on item 8.5. Here she is.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Karen Mayers and I live at Bencubbin Estate and am a neighbour to Hampton Park. The notice of motion before you, item 8.5, recognised that council is not the consent authority for approval. It also speaks to the potential benefits of energy facilities. But what it does not recognise is there is a downside. Prolonged uncertainty, stress and disruption that communities like Bencubbin Estate, Burgrove and its neighbours to this project have been living under for more than a year. During this time, residents have been unable to plan improvements to their homes, unable to make informed decisions about their future, and can only imagine what the long-term impacts on their lifestyle and properties may be. The health impacts of this uncertainty is silent and it goes under the radar, but is real and being experienced by many of your constituents every day and is compounding. At the same time, across the Central West, proponents are actively pursuing more land near the poles and wires scheduled for upgrade. Without a comprehensive investigation of impacts into the Central West and the Dubbo Regional Council area, we cannot know when our region becomes overwhelmed or what level of development is sustainable. The motions before you do not address any of these issues. The motions do not address the impact on our regional resources, which are finite, including our rural road networks, housing, health and other community infrastructure. The motions do not address the fact that the large-scale solar guidelines are failing rural residential communities, particularly those nearby lifestyle estates and villages. The motions do not address the need for fair compensation for loss of appeal to these lifestyle homes and land. They do not require that mitigation measures be completed before construction begins, or that construction phase disruption, noise, dust, vibration, intrusion be compensated. And they do not require early enough consultation by planning officers, both state and local, so that unsuitable sites can be identified early and communities are not left in limbo for years. Advocating for these concerns should form part of the communications from Dubbo Regional Council to the New South Wales Government departments and ministers' offices. Advocating for change is required to maintain support for renewable energy in our region and ensure that the transition to multiple sources of energy is responsible and fair. For this reason, I am asking Council to defer or amend item 8.5. Number 1, advocate for cumulative impact study across the Central West, given the Dubbo Regional Council is the major city supporting services. Studies to identify the capacity of communities, construction peaks, long-term operational assessments, workforce analysis, and a full project inventory of both announced and unannounced projects. Using this information to assess the capacity of housing supplies, health services, road networks and emergency services. Number 2, advocate for a review of the large-scale solar guidelines to properly address residential lifestyle impacts. Number 3, advocate for fair compensation frameworks for directly affected neighbours. Number 4, advocate for a requirement that all mitigation measures be completed before construction and independently verified. Number 5, advocate for a requirement that adequate financial guarantees are in place for decommissioning as a prerequisite to construction commencing. Number 6, advocate for a construction phase compensation scheme for noise, dust and disruption to communities. Number 7, advocate for a more robust requirement for early extensive community consultation. And number 8, include a motion that Dubbo Regional Council's formal support for individual projects is withheld until there is an agreed pathway to address these matters. These additions do not oppose energy development. They simply advocate that the transition does not come at the expense of communities who live beside these developments and balance community opportunity with fairness. Thank you for your time and considering this request.
Thank you. Next up, we have Belinda Attlee on 8.5.
Thank you for adding me to the speaker list after I was previously advised that there was only 2 speakers to speak on the motion of 8.5, the renewable projects. So I'm actually having to wing it tonight. But I'd like to thank everyone here for turning up. We've all been forced onto the highway because our roads, all unsealed around the Boree project, are pretty ordinary at the moment with the rain. And that's going to be something that really needs to be addressed when we're talking about state significant projects and whether Dubbo is a consent authority or has any input into it. We are here not to ask you to vote for the motion, but to ask you to vote against the motion, because as council, you do have some input into these state significant developments. This is in our local area. We live here. We use the road networks. We are backwards and forwards. We do need to have some input. We can't just let it be steamrolled through as a state significant development and that everything is going to be considered. If we go and have a look at the Keswick estate, there's no screening around it where the solar project is. Maryvale, that's a hot potch of unsealed roads, sealed bits, and the proponent only did the bare minimum to get the tick of approval. Boree is completely surrounded by unsealed roads. So are we going to have for their 4 access points that they're just going to seal the little bit where they turn off to go into the project and the rest of the roads are going to be trashed? We need to have a balanced approach. And I noticed in the minutes there that on the next month, we've asked council to come back with a report about council's position and role with state significant projects. So I'm a little bit mystified why we have this motion up now and why we didn't wait until we got the information next month. Wouldn't that be a little bit more logical? We're burning up dollars of council staff on input and providing councillors with information on renewable projects, but we're not getting any funding for it. You guys have written to Energy Co to ask them to finance a bit more of all of these renewable projects that are popping up, and we're up to, 28 of them now. And yet we're going to open up the doors and say, come on in. Seriously, do we have the resources to manage all these projects and for what we need to input into their environmental studies, into the roads, into the housing? We really need to consider what the benefits are going to be for us who are going to be the people living here. These developers, Venn Energy, don't have an office in Dubbo, don't have one in Geary, don't have one in Wellington. Hampton Park proponents, they don't have an office here. They don't have full-time staff here. Squadron's probably the only one that has an office out of all the renewable projects. So I don't know. To say that renewables are all state significant development approved, it's not true. Western Planning do approve the smaller projects. So, do people then say, well, we have a little smaller one, then we do a modification and these things just keep on growing? We've seen it if you look on the New South Wales planning portal that I think it's Burraway had modifications. A workers' camp got added. All of these things, if we just store open the doors and we have no input, then it's out of control. We've got to live here. We expect council and councillors to have an active interest in this and to look at what they can do to make the betterment of where we live. Not to throw open the doors and have every cowboy that thinks that they can come in here, get an approval from New South Wales government, flip the project and find someone to develop it. Ben Energy has not developed a project or put a foot on the ground to actually do any of their solar projects yet, but they're looking for someone to buy them out. It's just not going to be solar panels and wind turbines. There's substations, concrete batching plants, switching yards, subdivision of the properties because Essential Energy actually becomes the owner of the switching yards. The wind turbines, we've got all the roads to get to wherever they have to put their wind turbines. We've got quarries carting gravel. If you've been out on the Golden Highway lately, you would have seen the gravel trucks going out there to all those projects. The roads will suffer and they're the responsibility of council if it's local roads. So we do need to have an input into it. And the other thing I think is very important is the VPAs. We're not negotiating hard enough. We're getting sugar hits. And developers know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Jacob Perry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, Andrew. Hope you enjoy your time here at Dubbo. Thank you all for letting me speak here tonight. And I just want to touch base on 8.5 as well. The one point I'd like to make is Boree is 3,000 acres, 3,500 acres. That's the size of probably the usual farm round Geary. So you take a property like that out of the equation, that's a farmer who would be paying close to $30,000 a year in rates. That farmer also goes and uses the livestock market, sells his cows there, they buy tractor parts, fertiliser, you name it. So the money that 3,000 acre farm hypothetically would put into the local community is far greater than a pathetic $200,000 from these companies, these shysters that we're getting. Forest Glen, $200,000 a year for Dubbo Regional Council, they might as well not even bother for that sort of money. And it's a continuing theme here. We are getting shortchanged, we are getting shafted, and the VPAs don't fit the criteria. We should be getting a lot more than we are, but all we're getting is trash roads, divided communities, and no benefit. Our power bills don't come down in this area. They're probably some of the highest on record. So it needs to be considered before Councillor Dickinson's motion. Are these things going to be addressed? If they're not, it's no benefit to the community, maybe if you're a shareholder in one of these companies, but there is no logic behind inviting a company into our neck of the woods who's not going to play ball. We're seeing it divide our community. We're seeing it tear families apart. And these companies, once they make their money, they couldn't care less. As the audience have said, they don't have offices here. They don't contribute anything. And yeah, we're left to pick up the pieces. But there will come a time and day when people will have to realise they need food on their tables. And if you keep eliminating farm by farm, a 3,000 acre farm, which is the usual farm south of Geary, contributes, as I said, $30,000 a year in rates. And that's probably the entirety of North Yeovil. So that one farmer is contributing quite a lot to the local community. And then we just get told that, oh, well, he's got to go for the greater good. Well, the greater good is looking after the landholders. And as we've seen with Hampton Park, this is another example where these companies don't care about your farm or your lifestyle block. If they had their choice, they'd probably build it in the main street of Dubbo. These locations are entirely inappropriate. there was not much opposition to the Wellington solar farms because they were all sort of confined to a certain area. But when you get these shysters say, oh, well, we're going to build a solar farm here at Geary, we're going to build one at Hampton Park, or we're going to just set up shop here, that is not appropriate. You can't just go and say, I want to build a coal mine down your neck of the woods or this or that. There's strict controls, and we need to be stricter on the approval processes we have at our feet. We need to demand more. We need to demand a fair go, and where appropriate, do what we can to oppose these projects, because we are, despite the presses out there, a green energy capital. We are not a green energy capital, and if people want a green energy capital for this area, they will vote on that in March next year. But until now, we are happy with how we've been going for the last 200 years. We make our money off a variety of incomes in this LGA, and putting our eggs all in the renewable basket is a recipe for disaster. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Linda Cutler on item 9.1.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. My name's Linda Cutler and I also reside on Bencoven Drive. And thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to speak this evening. I would like to begin actually by acknowledging the work this council has already done to uphold the Dubbo Regional Council Strategic Pillar 3, working together for the region. And in particular, the aspiration that our council remains open, fair and accountable in its decision-making. Your objection following the scoping report of the Hampton Park Solar and BESS proposal demonstrated exactly that commitment, and my community is genuinely grateful for that. As we move into tonight's agenda on energy projects, the Hampton Park is one of 11 listed in the program, and the importance of continuing to apply the principles set out in CSP 3.1 and DP 3.1.3, which call on council to foster two-way communication between council, stakeholders, and the community. These aren't just lines in a document. They're the foundation of trust between residents and their elected representatives. They ensure that decisions made in this chamber reflect not only strategic goals, but also the lived reality of the people who call this region home, of which I'm one. That is why it's essential that each energy project is assessed on its own merits, not as part of a blanket approach to development. The community understands the need for renewable energy and also the role regional areas play in supporting state and national targets. But we also expect that projects are placed where they make sense, where they do not compromise the well-being, amenity, or safety of existing communities. The Hampton Park Solar and BESS proposal is a clear example of where those principles must be applied rigorously. With 130 households plus located in 1 to 2 K from the proposed site, the impacts aren't hypothetical. They're immediate, tangible, and deeply concerning. Residents face the prospect of significant noise, virtual intrusion, and an overall loss of amenity that would fundamentally change the character of our homes and our neighborhood. These are not minor inconveniences. They are quality of life issues. They are mental health issues. They are fairness issues. And they're exactly the kinds of concerns that the Strategic Pillar 3 requires council to listen to, engage with, and act upon. As I said, your earlier objection at the scoping report stage showed that you heard the community. Tonight, I ask that you continue to uphold that same standard of responsiveness and accountability. The community is not asking for special treatment. We are asking for consistent, transparent, merit-based decision-making grounded in the principles to which you have already committed to. We want to work with our council, not against it. We want to be part of shaping this region's future, not sidelined by decisions that overlook the people most affected. And we want to ensure that renewable energy development in the Dubbo region is done responsively, sensitively, and in partnership with the community, as your strategic documents promise. And that We are not asking you, as I said, to oppose renewable energy. We're asking you to stand up for the people who will live beside this project every single day for the next 30 years, in this case, Hampton Park. So in considering the project, we're asking you to demand stronger answers, stronger setbacks, independent safety assessments, real consultation, of which we don't feel we're getting, enforceable decommissioning guarantees, and potentially planning agreements that actually compensate those that are affected. If this council wants to be seen as progressive, then be progressive in the right way by protecting and listening to your residents and considering each project independently. Once again, thank you for your ongoing engagement and for your willingness to stand with residents when projects pose unacceptable impacts. We hope you will continue to champion open communication, fair assessment, and accountable decision-making as this and future proposals come in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no more registered speakers for the public forum, which is now closed. Could anyone who's going to have a big chat afterwards, please do so just out in the foyer before the meeting starts as we set up the room for the next meeting. Thank you very much. Please stop the web stream.